like, I don't know about you, Jim, but I've become a bit more of an introvert, I feel like, in the last 18 months. And I'm kind of
I've
now
always
like,
been an introvert.
yeah, you have a little bit. And I'm just kind of now like, oh, do I have to share it with other people? Like, they're going to talk about it. And I'm like, I don't want them to. I'm kind of
I
like,
think I
I'm
think it's
fine with it being just our little thing. But I guess we've got to release it, haven't we?
Shall we start with a compliment, kids? Shall we start
Yeah,
with a
go
nice
on.
compliment?
Tell me a nice
Uh,
thing. Tell me a nice thing.
that single's the best thing you've ever done, in my view. I think it's
You
absolutely
reckon?
brilliant, guys. Yeah, I really like it. It's big, it's punchy, it's very, very catchy. It's capturing that kind of live sound, which I know has been very important for you on this next record and stuff. I think it's
Yeah.
great. Like, I didn't know what to expect because I thought, oh, you're going to do something a little bit different, and you have, but it still sounds like you, and that's always a rare thing to pull off. So well done. Tell me a little
Nice.
bit about where this one came together. 90 Seconds to Midnight. Let's go.
Well, I mean, we wrote all the instrumentals in one go on this album. We didn't write any top lines for anything at the time of instrumental writing. We brought it all
chaos,
home
Jane.
and then we
It was
did it all
chaos.
in it was chaos. So this one, I think it was one of the ones that came together in the middle of the whole record stuff. But I mean, we really wanted like a really just guitar-y song. We didn't want, no frills, just balls to the wall. And I think it's like 2.5 minutes long. Um, and I think we were just messing about with a riff. Jem, you wrote this riff, didn't you? I remember, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just
Oh,
like I felt like we went into the studio to do a whole album at once. Like we were like, looking at like the My Chems, the Green Days, whatever, and how it all their like albums that were written at one time all feel like a cohesive like mood. And we were like we really wanted to kind of capture that energy that I don't know, kind of gets gets stirred around when you're in a studio for stupid amounts of hours over a month. And yeah, like Han said, we were like in the middle of writing it, and I think we were just kind of like we wanted this super in your face, like punchy, no frills, like 100 mile an hour song, and this kind of riff just came out, and we were like, all right, let's kind of like
I
base
like
the
that's
entire
sick. That's
song.
gonna be, and it's always like that'll be great live. That'll be great live.
Yeah, and then you go
You know?
back to try and learn it, and you're like, how the fuck am I going to play this?
Yeah.
Champagne problems. You've made a
Oh
riff
yeah,
that's too good for live. It feels set openery. It feels that it's like
Yeah.
it's kicking off the show a little bit. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
here we go, strap in. I mean, is this kind of it sounds like, yeah, you talk about cohesive records and all that kind of stuff. Is it kind of setting the tone for the rest of the album then, I take it?
no,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes and
really?
no. Like
Okay.
it's such a varied record, but it's like it all feels hot milk, as it always will. But there's like some songs that have any guitars on them.
some
I don't
that
know. We've kind of
there's
just
some that don't
written,
have any drums on.
yeah.
Like if
There's
we,
like a house banger on it as well. Don't
yeah,
know.
with like fully auto-tuned vocals, like we've just gone like
This will be
turn
cool. Let's
turn
do
up to like
that.
100%. Like we were listening to like Charlie XCX and stuff like that, and we were like, wonder if we could do that, but like more rock.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man.
It's a
it's
very
weird,
strange
man.
record, I would say. I mean, so going back to 90 Seconds to Midnight, I just think as a song, that's the first like opener to the whole feeling of the record because it's kind of quite a political record, a lot of overtones philosophically. Like this song itself is based on The Social Contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau from the 17th century and a poem by John Betterman, I think that's how you say his name, poem called Slough. I don't know if you've ever heard
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
come
You
friendly
know,
bombs
the
and fall
Come
on
Friendly
slow.
Bomb.
Isn't fit for
Yeah,
humans now. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like just rinsing the whole place and starting again.
Yeah. And that's
yeah.
kind of how
Interesting.
they wanted to begin it all, like let's just fucking, oh, this has gone too far gone. This is all a bit of a mess. Let's fucking, start again. So the whole record kind of dodges and weaves and bends through all these kinds of, philosophical feelings, but also there's kind of more on the nose moments about America and about England, so to speak.
Yeah,
You know,
we've tried to keep it quite British orientated, like in
yeah.
terms of both topic, like stylistically, stuff with that like we've kind of pulled from musically. It's we've all kind of like focused on like Britain, I guess, or at
Hmm.
least like the north of
I
Britain.
think just like from where we live, like I
Yeah,
think this is the thing. Like the cover was shot in James's back garden. Like we've shot the
say
whole
garden. It's in
sorry
an alley.
backyard.
It's an alleyway.
It's an alleyway. And we really did the video all around Salford and stuff because I didn't want to go too far home. I think I put it in my sat nav in the morning where we were going. It said 7 minute drive, and I was like, fucking well in. Don't have to go anywhere. It was great.
And it was
Um,
fucking freezing. It
it's
was
so
so
cold.
cold.
Yeah, and we
All
were
of us had
so ill.
flu.
Yeah, we We were so ill, and I was in such a bad mood. But
Went
then
on.
we we messaged Frank Skinner, I think, a week before we were supposed to do this video, because we had this character that we needed in the video, this kind of guy that was like happy to see the world end or whatever. And so we messaged him just on a whim, being like, would you do this? And he was like, yeah, I'll do it for like fish and chips or something.
Man,
So we
that's
got him.
great. We should
Yeah.
clarify that as well, by the way, because obviously, I mean, British band, obviously big British fan base, but you've got a big international fan base as well. I just want to make
Mm.
clear any Americans watching this now. Frank Skinner's a household name, like
Oh yeah.
proper,
Yeah.
like big TV stuff. Getting someone like this, everyone knows who this guy is. And like, if you know anything about pop culture,
Oh yeah, there's
like,
going to
been
be a
going
lot
for
of
years.
confused Americans. I feel like who's this
Sure.
old bloke? But the thing is, I don't think he's in the video so much so that it's like all about him. It's just a nice, like, if you know kind of moment, which I kind of like. I don't want it to be too overpowering, but he smashed it, and like I think it's made an interesting video, which it's a talking point, and that's all you could ever really hope from a video. And we look all right in it, look pretty cool sometimes. So pretty happy with it.
Very cool, very cool. And as we
Yeah.
say about the album in general, I remember when we were catching up around the last record, I think it was Han, you said this in particular, that like you were obviously already had your eye on what you wanted to do next, and you were kind of saying, oh, we've got these ideas in mind and stuff. I'm curious though, how much of that you already had in mind around the last album actually made it onto this record? Was it kind of fully formed already, or did you discover we want to do some new stuff that we hadn't already thought of yet?
I mean, I would say like that in terms of subject matter, like it started at one point what I already had, and then it expanded into places that I didn't necessarily think it would do. Like I think with this record, we've never cared less about what people think. I think we just fully wrote it in our little bubble, and now we're releasing it, and it kind of feels like I don't know about you, Jim, but I've become more of an introvert, I feel like, in the last 18 months. And I'm kind of
I've
now
always
like,
been an introvert.
yeah, you have a little bit. And I'm just kind of now like, oh, do I have to share it with other people? Like they're going to talk about it. And I'm like, I don't want them to. I'm kind of
I
like,
think I
I'm
think it's
fine with it being just our little thing. But I guess we've got to release it, haven't we? But
we started off like in terms of like pulling stuff over from like what we've done before and like we had a focus. The only thing we really had in mind was like a track listing in terms of like what kind of vibe we want per song. So it was like first song we want it to be like a big grand opening, quite dark and heavy, and then as it goes through like changes up, and we've put like loads of interludes in. So we've kind of written it in an order that I
yeah,
mean,
we wrote it from beginning to end, which we've never really done before. And,
well,
because it was written from beginning to end, there was never like, oh, we need to get a single or anything like that. And I despise when people fucking say that. And I don't listen. I'm like, go away. Like, we don't need to be doing shit like that. Like, we just wanted to write a piece of work and a body of work that kind of just made sense with itself, which is maybe why it was so hard to pick singles from
yeah.
this record. Like, no one's agreed actually at all in our camp what the singles are.
Mm.
So I feel like we've kind of just gone, we want these, and people have had to say yes.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
weird because
really
it's like,
interesting.
is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, if people all like different things, then great. But
Or maybe there's just
no
not one good song
standout
on it.
single. Yeah, it's a bit of a
But it'll reveal itself as well because, like you say, if you're trying varied things on an album, the audience are almost going to pick their own singles once the whole thing's
yeah.
out there. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I say, I think this first single's great, and I think it's a really, really good taste of what's to come, and that's awesome. But I imagine that people will just. I think it was Pete from Fall Out Boy was saying this actually. He was like on one of their records, it was just like, oh, the track that we never would have even bothered releasing became the one that everyone went nuts for on streaming. So there you are, and you may
Yeah.
find that happens, especially if it's going to be varied like this, right?
You just don't
Yeah,
know. You have no idea these days. But I think at the end of the day, they're all my children, these songs. And if one of the children wants to run away from home and become a superstar, then I'm all right with that.
On you go, kid. You
On
take
you
the
go.
limelight
On you
this
go, our
time.
kid. Have a nice
We'll allow
time.
you. We'll allow it.
Yeah.
Let's talk title then. Corporation Pop or P.O.P. What are we going? How are we
Yeah,
pronouncing
it's
that first song?
Corporation Pop. It's kind of
Cool.
a try meaning. So like,
what did it start
um,
off? What did it start off as?
what do you mean? What did it start off
As
as?
in, who was the first person to coin this? When you came to me and you were like,
What, my granddad?
yeah,
Well, yes, my granddad that's what he calls water from tap. You know, Corporation Pop.
That's great.
Right.
Oh, that's
So like
great.
Council Pop or Corporation Poppy. Oh, go on. Can I have a fizzy drink, Grandad? No, have some Corporation Pop from the tap. So the POP for in this instance stands for payment of pain. It's kind of about the commodification of pain in the modern world and how if we don't suffer, it's almost like you're not allowed a seat at the table. You need to have had some pain, and that pain is caused by the modernity that we're currently living in. the Corporation P.O.P element of it, I thought it'd be funny because we're signed to a major label and it pissed them off a little bit. And also people being like, what the fuck are this? Are they Hot Milk? Are they a rock band? Are they whatever? And it's like, well, we're Hot Milk, so go shag your mum. So it was kind of like a little nod to that, but this Corporation P.O.P element, of like the water bit was kind of like, well, it runs through everyone's homes and it's all running through us currently, this pain and consumerism and commodification. And I don't know, it was just a title that completely stuck from the get-go, and we just thought it sounded cool as well. So it's like, okay, let's stick it with that. And I'm pretty sure the label didn't want us to call it that, so that made me want to call it more. So I was like, yes, that's what we're going to go for.
Yeah, there's that punk spirit coming through once again.
Oh,
I
okay.
respect it. I respect it. It's good. And obviously, I've only heard the single at this point, but I am aware that, as you've said already, very much that UK spirit you want to be throwing through the album. And I just think that's like references and stuff here and there. And obviously, Frank
Yeah.
Skinner's in the video and all this kind of thing. I just think that's really interesting because you guys are almost an outlier in some ways with the sound that you make. Like, not many bands coming out of the UK are making this sound. It's a huge type of sound at the minute, as we know. And like, but I would say a lot of your contemporaries, in terms of the kind of stuff you do, are mainly US based, right? It's got to be nice to I guess be just flying the flag a little bit and making sure you put your British stamp on this scene in a big, big way. I mean, that's the way I see it anyway. But I'd love to know your thoughts on
Yeah.
just
I,
putting that to the
Just,
I think
forefront.
it's yeah, I think it's because we have like so much music bleed into our music, but we're very much kind of like I don't know, as we've got older, I think we've kind of looked more closer to home. Like the further out we've gone, like the more focal point we have, like when we get back home, and like especially trying to pull um meanings for songs. We had to write the whole album vocally in 2 weeks. So we were like, there's no point trying to write about like loads of different experiences when we're just kind of, we've been on tour, we've got back off tour, we've written an album, we went back on tour. So it's like there's not a lot going on there to write about apart from, like, oh, it's
our
really
own
nice being in the
experiences.
van.
Yeah, so
But
we just wrote about like our own experiences, but from where we live, the way that we see the world right now. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people are feeling at the minute. Anyway, it's the most crazy time that I think I've ever experienced in terms of global politics since I've been alive,
yeah,
and I'm 32 on Saturday. So do you know what I mean? It's like it's a mad old time. But like, yeah, James is right. I feel like you look closer to home as I think as you older you get, and you kind of because I think when you're growing up, you take a bit, you take everything for granted a little bit what's on your doorstep because you think, well, it's not here's shit, so I have to look further afield. And then I think when you kind of you get a bit older, you kind of like actually, I'm really proud to be from here, and I'm really proud of what this area has done for the world, like and I think that's kind of what we wanted to kind of put a little bit into the music this time round, just because this is the streets we roam, and why shouldn't it be in the tunes we make?
I also think as well where you're a bit younger and a bit more kind of uncertain in yourself, you kind of tend to look at other people, especially, with how fast paced like online social media is nowadays, and you tend to try and emulate other people's stuff, but in your own way. Um, I feel like the older we've got, the kind of like the more, I mean, me personally, I despise the internet, so I'd spend as little time on it as possible and just try and focus on like what I want to do and like what I like and stuff like that. So, I think that was kind of like, me and Hannah, we weren't really listening to much other music writing this. Like, we
No.
just, especially touring as heavily as we did do, and then trying to write at the same time, you just get inundated with music and it becomes exhausting and fatiguing. So like, we were listening to like podcasts and, stuff that talks about other things. And I think that's where that's kind of bled in more so than like other people's musical identity, I guess. So we've managed to kind of keep it quite, I don't know, hot milky or whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're
Yeah.
right. I think that's it. Like, we haven't been listening to a lot of music recently. I've been going further and further backwards and kind of just landing on the same bands I was listening to when I was younger a lot, a lot of old punk music. And I think that comes through in this, but also kind of like a lot of modern dance music as well. So it's a really weird little combination. But I think both of the roots of those sub genres, I suppose, have got the same energy in them, which is
Yeah.
release, freedom, you know, away from the mainstream and revolt. So I think that's kind of where this kind of crossover has kind of worked quite well for us.
Also, like the absolute crossover of Manchester in so many ways, isn't it? That kind of
Exactly.
old school rock stuff, and then my God, the evolution of dance music through that city. It makes all
Exactly.
the sense in the world.
Well,
No,
there's a
very, very
there's a
cool.
And the
number of
song called yeah,
hacienda references in the music.
Oh, very good. We need to
and
get you a
where,
warehouse project, guys. I want a
well,
hot
there's a
milk
song called
warehouse
Warehouse
takeover.
Salvation. So
Yeah,
there you
there's a
go.
song about
Yep.
there's a song
Man.
about Warehouse Project on the record.
Let's talk a little bit about live shows though, because I'm glad you mentioned the fact that you guys did tour so heavily around the last record, and obviously headliners and all this stuff, and loads of big support slots and big venues and all these kind of things. I've heard you say already that this record, you're very much channeling into live, and lots of bands say that, but very few walk the walk. But it definitely feels like that's been just even the little bits of it. This is the approach, right? You wanted to make something that feels visceral and feels like very easy to replicate, and feels like being in the room with you when you play it, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think on this record as well, what I think is important to know is like we did everything analog. Like we, you know, didn't use any like real splice moments, you know, like a lot of people kind of use samples and stuff. We sat in a room with like 20 synths and about like 8 different amps and went through every single sound on every single song physically for the first time, which we've never done before. We wanted it to feel a little bit more raw, this record, a little bit more live sounding. I think just as we've grown up through this band, you know, we've been here 5-6 years now. I think we're more interested in us four on stage together and having that magical moment. I think the wealth of this for me is playing. And I think that's where we wanted to you know, set a path for ourselves moving forward that we can be excited to walk down. So I think that's kind of where this has all come from, analog wise.
I think as
Yeah.
well from the fact that, writing the everything else pretty much in this room here, like it's a tiny little room in Salford. I've got like some speakers, some guitars, and everything else is in the computer. So being able to go and like feel things, like, actually twiddle knobs and like do stuff like that is just so much more of a it's like like haptic, feedback on your phone. It's a bit like that kind of equivalent as a musician, where you can kind of get real time feel from like what is actually changing. It was sick. It was like I loved it. It's something I've wanted to do for so long, but just due to time restraints and budget or whatever, we just had to make do. So it was it was a really sick experience.
I mean, we definitely still had a time restraint. I don't think I've ever
Well, we
fitted so
always
many
fit.
songs in because the album's 14 songs long.
Yeah.
And that's all we wrote. We wrote 14 songs. We
Oh,
didn't
there you
write
go.
any more. We just wrote from beginning to end 14 songs. Here's your album.
Man, it's nice when it comes out that way.
I
That's
mean,
very nice.
some of it might not be very good, James. We don't know.
I'll be the judge of that. Thank you very
You
much.
could be the
All
judge
good.
of that.
All
All hail.
good.
All hail.
Exactly. Thank you. Finally, some respect.